thank you so much for doing this again with me. For those who are listening to this, it might be worth noting that this is the second attempt, the second time we do this. We had
Take
a
two.
really, really lovely initial conversation, and right after we concluded it, I pressed the double click just to see what we just recorded, and realized that Gabriel's sound was not a part of it at all. So frustrating. Hopefully this time it will work a little bit better. So how are you? How's it going? How's your day?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm house sitting for my parents. They live like an hour and a half out of the city, so I'm on the farm, so to speak.
Wow,
Had to get up early to feed the geese and the chickens.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
It looks really
So, yeah.
picturesque behind you, like the
Oh yeah, it's very rustic.
yeah,
Yeah.
so nice.
Just how's your day been?
It's been good too. I'm excited that it's Friday, and
Yeah.
I've had more than just a few hiccups with setting up the technology, but hopefully at some point soon I'll be able to move past that and be in a
Yeah.
in a more positive mental state. But yeah, I'm good. Like it's
Yeah.
weekend. Things are nice.
Yes.
So for those who don't know you, how would you introduce yourself? Well, why is it that we're talking together? Who are you?
Well, I don't know. That's a tricky one.
It's a big one, intentionally so.
Yeah, it is a big one. I guess through the lens of Instagram, my account is Suffering Meat, and yeah, I've been running that account for quite a few years. I can't remember exactly. Like there have been various iterations of it. I think I'm on my third one at the moment. I think we discussed in our last talk. It's been probably like 2021 or 2020, something like that. It was probably when it started.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of what I do while I'm chronically online. I find it like a bit embarrassing to talk about, like outside of Instagram, and this feels like outside of Instagram because we're not on Instagram.
That's true. Yeah,
Yeah.
a little. I
mean,
mean, I get it. What makes
yeah.
it feel awkward for you?
I don't know. It just feels a bit silly, like with your account, it obviously becomes quite a big part of your life. Definitely fairly time consuming, and to the uninitiated, I don't know, how do you even describe that? You're like, well, there's all those memes about, there's the guy standing in the corner and he's standing there being
Yeah,
like, they
that's
don't know I'm mildly popular online or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But you know what? So for me, yeah, of course, like there came a day where I created an account and I started sharing on Instagram, but to some extent, I see it almost as a continuation of my personality. Like
Yeah.
I am the type of person to share stuff. If I see something funny, I want others to see it too, and
Yeah.
that's like a red thread for me. Who were you before Instagram?
Fuck, I'm going to have to plug my laptop in, sorry.
Yeah, no
I'm
worries.
going to have to cut this bit out.
Sure.
Alright, now I have to find it. Alright, sorry.
No worries. I live in an old house, and
Oh,
I feel like we have 5 electric outlets in this like building. So
Yeah, look at
Yeah.
look at this. Look how
Wow.
old those things are.
Nice.
This house
I
is
don't think I've ever
probably
seen
better.
a New Zealand outlet before. Like the socket looks a little bit like the Scream mask.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
that's
it's
just
like
where my mind goes.
2
Yeah, yeah.
there and 1 there, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, before Instagram.
Yeah, who were you before Instagram?
I mean, I'm exactly the same person as I am now, I suppose. What I'd like to think. I don't know, I think, when you say that, do you mean like, what kind of life have I had, or?
I am interested in that too. I was thinking mainly what led you to starting your Instagram account? Like, how was that a step that you chose to take?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I guess it wasn't really like a conscious thing. I didn't set out to be like, cool, I'm gonna post stuff and have an account or like a following. I didn't even realize that it was really a thing. To be honest, I always thought Instagram was just people posting photos of themselves on holiday or whatever. And I guess the way that that like Meta or Facebook or whatever would have you imagine it, like just a way of showing people how nice your life is or whatever.
Yeah.
And I didn't even really realize there was like an interesting community on Instagram until I kind of became part of it. Initially, I just started posting stuff that I saw that I thought was kind of gross but interesting. That gave me gave me like a gut reaction or whatever. And then, people started following me, and I guess some people in that community started following me, and then I kind of realized that it was a thing.
Yeah.
To have an account and have a following, and that there was a community and stuff like that.
Who were the first people? Who were the first people to follow you?
I think some of my friends from New Zealand, and they were following Ben Ditto, I think, and then Ben followed me, and then I was kind of like, what the hell's going on? Like, this is crazy, all this stuff. And then I found, all of the people that I follow now. I guess that's kind of how it started. And then as, I guess I started picking up a bit of momentum and realised that it was an interesting platform that you could actually, you could have a bit of fun with, and you could kind of make it what you wanted. It didn't necessarily have to be like holiday pictures with your family. I don't know. I guess that's how it started out. Yeah, kind of realised that it was something that I could have a bit of fun with and play around with. Yeah, that makes sense.
Just out of curiosity, if you never would have started Instagram, how do you think you would have expressed those part of you elsewhere? Like, did you do anything else at the time that was similar?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'm really not sure. I've always enjoyed like music and stuff, so I've played in a couple of bands, and I feel like that kind of, I don't know, music scenes are a similar kind of community in a way.
Yeah.
So I feel like I probably would have just expressed myself probably in a more conventional way, just in the music scene.
Sure.
Perhaps, or probably just smaller communities based around doing stuff, like music or art or whatever.
Yeah.
Which I still do, obviously, a little bit, but
do you make music? I didn't know that.
Oh, I mean, I've kind of been in other people's bands,
Okay.
I really enjoy playing music as an activity, and I like mucking around and writing little like acoustic guitar songs and stuff like that. But
cool.
It kind of has to be fun, it has to be fun for me to want to do it. So as soon as it gets like stressful, it's kind of not worth it for me. Even just having to like play a gig where we have to take a huge amount of shit to the gig.
Yeah.
Like even that's just like, I almost can't be bothered, even though it is fun, The fun has to outweigh the work.
Do you ever share stuff like that online? I don't think I've ever seen it on your page.
When I was in the band, I'd share stuff like that, just practice and us practicing and stuff like that. Yeah. But I haven't done any music stuff for probably 2 years or so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of the thing where it kind of just has to find you, and it has to be right.
Totally.
It's not something I really seek out.
Yeah. I in the little studio where I am right now, I have a bunch of instruments and stuff all around me, but they're
some knobs and dials.
In
the background.
and I love them, and I think I'm sort of living off the hope that I will spend more time with them, but I just get so, work takes up a lot of time, and when I'm not working, I want to spend time with family and friends and my surroundings and stuff. So it's tough to find the time to be in the headspace to make music, even though it's like one of the things that energizes me more than anything. It's just hard to find time for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like it kind of comes around at the right time though. Like I have quite a few different things that I enjoy doing, and I don't I'll get really into something for a couple of months and then I kind of get a bit sick of it and then go and do something else.
Yeah.
And in the past, I've always been like, oh, fuck, I've just completely blown off this hobby that I've gotten involved in and been enjoying, which is quite depressing. But then I usually end up cycling back round to it.
Yeah. No, I'm
so I've
very much like that too.
Yeah,
sure.
You kind of just have to let go of it and be like, when the time comes and it's right, I'll find my way back to it and not just throw it out the window.
But you've been on Instagram for a long time now, so like,
yeah,
how has your account changed from early days of posting gross things to elicit a gut reaction from your friends?
Well, I mean, I guess it's changed a lot with our community guidelines.
Yeah.
Because the things that you could post on Instagram a couple of years ago are very different to the things you can post on Instagram now. Obviously, the censorship is a lot stricter. You can still get away with posting quite a bit of stuff, but I just kind of can't really be bothered with like the risk of it,
Mm-hmm. Well, tell me more about that. Risk of deletion, violations? What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I've spent a lot of time building up my archive, or whatever you want to call the collection of stuff that I've posted, and as much as I'd like to say I don't care if my account gets deleted because I'll just start another one, I do care if my account gets deleted.
Yeah.
Because it's just like a shit feeling.
Yeah. So you've had that happen to you 3 times?
Yeah, quite a few times. Yeah. And
yeah.
At the moment, it's the longest I've had. It's the longest one of my accounts has lasted. And yeah.
Knock on wood. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think obviously, those limitations to what you can post kind of has pushed me to posting things that kind of give me that same feeling but are a little bit more subtle, or give me that feeling in different ways, which is kind of quite good because it's pushed me to explore different things and explore why they make me feel the way they do,
Yeah, definitely.
as opposed to posting like quite graphic gory things, which is it's obviously like invokes a strong instant reaction, but it's kind of like it's kind of like getting hit in the head with a blunt object. It's not very it's not very nuanced. So I guess I as I get older, the things I find interesting become more nuanced. Yeah,
I agree. And for me and for I think a lot of people in this community, it's not so much about posting something crazy. It's posting the craziest thing you can get away with. Like, that to me, you want to sort of what's the expression? Poke at the bear or whatever. You want to see how close to the edge you can get.
And the funny thing is you don't know how close to the edge you've gotten until you fall off. So the only time you really know is when you get a warning. You're like, oh yeah, that was a bit far.
Yeah. And sometimes they give you warnings and violations and deletions for things that are ludicrous, right? Like it's. Yeah. Also, on a side note, I use the word ludicrous right now. I have such a problem with distinguishing ludicrous from Ludacris, like the rapper name. And every time I try to like type it out, I type the rapper name out by mistake. I don't know why that happens.
I mean, I'm sure anyone reading would really appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be stoked if I saw that in a sentence. Like, nice.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard back about your original account? I mean, I'm assuming you haven't. I probably would have heard about it if you had.
I don't know if I shared the story with you, but I had an account. It had 62 or 63,000 followers. Pretty big. One day I get a notification saying that we have suspended your account. I think that's what it said. And then it didn't really say much more. And then I didn't understand why. And it said that it had violated the guidelines on business integrity. And like, I never claimed to be a business. I think maybe under where you can, select what thing you are. Maybe I set up a business account and maybe I called it, a public service, but I never once claimed to like sell anything or engage with anyone in a professional capacity. But that was the violation they gave me. And then you had to do this whole song and dance to sort of access your the reason behind it. So you had to like log in from a computer and then type in your password and stuff. And
Yeah.
they said that they deleted my account for, what was it, for pretending to be someone else, which again, like I've never once tried to impersonate anyone or under false pretenses claim that I did something else. But then when I said, I would like to appeal this decision, and I wrote this letter pleading that please reinstate my account, and I have this beautiful community around it, and it matters a lot to me, and I think it matters to other people too, and this is something I do as a art project, and sometimes I post a satire, whatever. Like long case, really like pleading for this, and then I don't know, 2 hours later, I received a boilerplate email in Chinese from a support at Facebook thing. Like the email was in Chinese. I don't quite understand why. But then I ran it through some translator, and it said essentially like, no, our decision is final. See you never, kind of a thing. So that's all the reasoning they ever gave me, that I violated some sort of business integrity thing and that I was pretending to be someone else. My hypothesis, and I don't know whether this is true, but my closest sort of approximation of reality would be that someone was offended that my account was called Our Community Guidelines, and then that people would assume that it was the Instagram community guidelines.
Oh yeah.
That's what I think, because a lot of people would reach out to me. People from the far corners of the world would send me messages saying like, why did I get violated? Or please repost the thing that was deleted, and sort of assuming that I was some sort of authority. But
yeah, that's really funny as well, that people would think that.
Oh, buddy.
That there would be an account that was like accountable,
Yeah, exactly,
kind of
exactly. It's pretty crazy, and along a similar vein. So you have your username, like your suffering meat, and then you also have the display name.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the old one that I used to have was, this user has blocked you, because I thought that would be funny, because like who in the right mind would believe that to be true? Well, only people that are quick to react, people that don't necessarily think everything through. Because if somebody actually blocked you, they wouldn't say like, this user has blocked you, therefore you can now continue with the engagement. Like they would just disappear, right? But the number of messages I would get on a near daily basis just saying, why did you block me? Or what did I ever do to you? Or, a lot of curse words sent my way for people being offended by it. Yeah, it's a strange world.
That is really funny, because I remember seeing your like display name and being like, what? That's a weird function that Instagram's using, It definitely does invoke like a gut reaction when you see it.
Yeah, but I think I see it in you, I see it in your account, but just trying to push the envelope a little, like get creative within the channel and the platform. Like that's why I like your account.
Yeah,
because
you have to function within like the framework that you're in, and that obviously applies to life as well, because not everything runs the way I'd like it to, but you still have to make the best of it.
Yeah,
with what you have available to you, right?
Yeah, totally. Where do you think your account will go in the future?
I really have no idea. I think the best way for me to look at it is just, it's a platform for sharing just little things that I find interesting on the day.
Yeah.
If I find out about a weird like medical condition that I find particularly fascinating, I'll post something like that about it. In the past, I did a lot of, it might have been on one of my previous accounts, I did a lot of posts about like disasters. Like normally air show disasters were one of my favorite, interesting topics. It's just like such a bizarre thing to have all these people come together and then witness this really dangerous thing, and then, the dangerous thing goes wrong and heaps of people are killed, and it's just like, I don't know, it's just it's a spectacle, it's such a weird thing for people to do. So I don't know, I guess it's like, just like my own wee version of Wikipedia in some way, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely like a bit of a cathartic thing that I do, and I don't know about you, but I feel like I have almost some duty to like keep finding things and posting stuff, and it's not like I don't feel bad if I don't do it, but there is a little part of me that's like, what are we gonna do tomorrow? Or if it's been a couple of days and I haven't posted anything, I'm like,
So
I should probably do something.
where does that feeling come from for you?
I mean, I think part of it is definitely like a bit of an addiction kind of a thing where you're like, you know, give me those little dopamine hits of, you know, I wonder how many likes this post will get, kind of a thing.
Could you do you know, like, do you keep track? Do you know how many likes you have on your most recent 5 posts? Could you tell me?
Oh, it normally ranges between like 2,000 to 5,000, which is an insanely low number compared to like the amount of followers I have.
How many followers do you have?
I think about like 30,000.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like, some of those are probably bots and, you know, whatever.
Yeah, and there's also a bunch of people that want to see your account, and sometimes they will send it, or they just, maybe it's been deprioritized in their feed because they're not very active on Instagram. Like, there are so many reasons, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
totally.
To me, it sounds like a reasonable amount of
engagement.
engagement.
I think it's pretty normal.
Yeah.
I also kind of enjoy, I don't know, I guess testing myself to see if I can predict what's going to be really popular, because some of the things that I find really interesting or beautiful or just like visually pleasing, I'll post, and, you know, it'll get like very little attention, and I'm like, wow, I thought that was going to be, you know, I thought that'd get a lot more attention than it did.
Yeah.
So it kind of like, you know, I think everyone tries to imagine how they're perceived by other people.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when I'm putting together a post, I'm trying to imagine how other people are going to be seeing this, and sometimes it just really goes to show you how wrong I am about, you know, how I think people are going to...
Generally, when you look back, what content performs better for you? Like, where do you feel like, oh, this was a crowd pleaser, you know?
I mean, I guess probably things that are like more shocking or more gross get the most interactions. And I'd like to think there was something more to it than that, but I think it does boil down to human nature. You know, people do just want to see
was that speaking of nature, sorry, was that a bird that just flew past you inside of your kitchen?
Yeah. Yeah, we have yeah, he's been flying around inside the kitchen all day. It's a native bird called a piwaka waka, which is the Māori name.
Wow.
I probably pronounced that wrong, but the English name is a fantail, and they're extremely friendly, tiny little birds.
But wait,
a little bit bigger than sparrows.
Is it a pet, or is it a bird that flew in from
No, it's just a wild bird. But they just like come in and out of the house, and they'll fly around and eat some of the flies and then leave.
I'm telling you, the New Zealand sounds like a magical place. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Sorry, that caught me off guard. I was not expecting that.
That was real distracting.
No,
he's been like,
good.
He's been at the other end of the house, and I've been watching him, and then he just came down.
Wow. So yeah, gory stuff, shocking stuff, basic sort of reptile brain, human nature.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But what excites you? What are your favorite things to post?
I really like things that look like other things, which I think is, you know, a bit silly, but it just does something.
What's
to
the
my
word?
Brain.
Pareidolia? Is that the thing?
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
something like
that.
Like
I posted something about that thing called like Tree Man Syndrome. And I just, you know, threw in a photo of that character from the Tree Guy from
the
one of those Marvel movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it? It was like a keratitis something, and it came from the HPV virus.
Yeah, so it's basically like if you have, if you're immunocompromised, or some people are just like particularly susceptible to whichever particular strain of HPV they have, because there's so many different strains of it, and in very rare cases, basically like that you get what you saw there
Mm-hmm.
with these crazy growths.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that art imitates nature, or whatever whatever the saying is.
Sure.
Life
Yeah.
imitates art, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just really like finding parallels in things.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's very satisfying for me, like finding connections. I guess it's just our brain's like desire to solve patterns, right? Like pattern recognition.
Yeah.
I guess it's probably an extension of that. And I like it when the two things are kind of like very, the opposite to each other.
Yeah.
Like, for example, another thing I find really interesting is theme park accidents. In as much as people, I think like most people have like an innate urge to like experience some kind of danger or like adrenaline. And that obviously doesn't happen naturally to most people anymore because society's very safe.
Yeah.
And so people might seek it out by going to something like a theme park and going on a roller coaster. And then there's a horrible accident and, a bunch of people are like horribly injured or killed.
Yeah.
And I think there's just something really horribly poetic in people seeking those like safe adrenaline rushes and then end up, being killed.
I see that. So on a related but maybe more tangential note, in what are they called? Like the little play parks or whatever for kids. In the communities, they put up, swings and the little climbing thing.
Yeah, little playground, yeah.
Playground, that's the word. Sorry. And I know a couple of years ago, maybe like 10, 15, 20 years ago, they started putting in the rubber tiles on the floor around them.
Yeah.
In a bunch of places. So that, when a kid would fall down, it wouldn't hurt them as much, or they wouldn't scrape their knees as much because it's made from this more porous material. But when they first started installing those in a new playground, then the incidence of kids falling down and like fracturing their arms and stuff would go way up, because all of a sudden they don't have the sort of natural, I have to be really careful about this, because they look at it and at a glance it looks like, well, here's this soft and squishy thing that I can bounce on. So then
throw myself onto.
Exactly. And break their little arms. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, they literally just had bark chips or
exactly.
Or stones, just like gravel, basically, like smooth gravel.
Yeah.
And you'd like scuff your knee up a bit, but you wouldn't break your bones, because I don't know, I feel like it's actually a much better surface to like disperse the impact of hitting the ground.
Yeah, and also
it works way better.
It looks like it would be painful to fall onto it,
Yeah.
And I think that's a key distinction, like the heuristic of it, almost like you get how it's behaving. I'm curious about...
that sums it up really well, though. It's almost poetic in a way.
I try.
Yeah.
You clearly have like a fascination for medical things. Like, having followed your page for a long time, I know you would post really strange injuries. You would post strange like conditions, people that have had terrible things happen to them, but they're all almost like something poetic or something beautiful or aesthetic about it, even though clearly it's painful or horrible and all those things.
Yeah.
If you were to describe that fascination you have with whatever you would call this, the human condition of like pain and suffering meat, maybe. I think maybe I understand your username now. But like, what is it that fascinates you? Do you think a lot about these things outside of Instagram?
I mean, once again, it's like we were talking about before. It's just almost like poetically horrible, some of the stuff that can happen to us, and I just can't believe it happens to people. I can't believe the stuff that happens to people, and the capacities that our bodies have to kind of malfunction or become hijacked, and it's pretty unbelievable. It's almost like an anti-miracle or something like that, you know, like, and I don't know, I feel like most people are, this close away from something similar happening to them. I mean, like it's genetics, it's environmental. Most of the time you have no control over it, and a lot of it could happen to anybody, right? So it's kind of like, if you're able-bodied it's like far out. I do feel really lucky, and I don't know, I feel like health is a real near miss, Like you could have easily not been, if you're not healthy, like, it's just like the flip of a coin whether you're going to be healthy or not. So I don't know, I just find it like really fascinating how kind of like horrible and random life can be.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Is it something that concerns you? Is it something that stands in the way of you enjoying life, or is it more like you can observe it from afar?
Oh, I think if anything, it helps me appreciate how healthy I am.
Yeah.
It definitely doesn't get in the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely put myself in a lot of really stupid, unsafe situations in my life, and at the time was completely oblivious to like how
the reality of it.
Stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. How silly and unsafe those situations were, and now looking back, I'm like, I can't believe that I am as healthy as I am. And it does really help me. It really puts things into perspective.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, and I feel like as morbidly fascinating as a lot of those things are, they do definitely serve a purpose.
I saw, I forget where it was. It was some comedian or some writer, whatever it was, saying that they believed to have found proof for God being evil. And they
was
said... They said, how someone who loses a limb can suffer excruciating phantom pains. So, they've lost their arm, yet their hand is like hurting so much it feels like it's on fire. They don't have a hand. But on the flip side of that, you never see a bald person going around and feeling like they have a good hair day. That's silly.
Oh, yeah, no, that's really good.
Yeah.
Was it? Oh, yeah, I thought it sounds like something Stephen Fry would say. I think he said something about, possible. If God existed, then why are there parasites that eat kids' eyes?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
anyway,
it's hard to justify sometimes. I'm curious about the types of people. We talked about this briefly another time, but the people that follow you. Like if you were to give me a summary of like types of people that follow your account, how would you describe them?
I think I don't know, I feel like a lot of the people that follow me are pretty down to earth. I guess because quite a lot of the stuff I post is fairly sciencey, so to speak. I feel like quite a few of the people I interact with that follow me have a reasonably good understanding of just life and I don't want to say like physics and stuff, but how you just have like a good basic foundation of understanding how kind of things work.
Mm-hmm.
Just like common sense and being like fairly grounded. That's how I'd probably describe them.
Age ranges and things like that, are they younger, older, a mix?
I think it's a bit of a mix. I'd say from like 17 to probably like 40 or something like that. I've actually had a look at the analytics and the statistics that you can go into if you have your account set to a business account, and I think the majority is kind of like 18 to mid 20s, and then that kind of like bell curve. But it's a fairly good range.
And can you describe sort of your general interactions with your followers? Like, how do you talk to them? How do you talk to them? Are you prolific in your DMs? Like, how do you engage?
I've definitely got like a few people, or a group of people that I message very regularly. And generally, like, the people that I message regularly are just the people that I have the most in common with, or the people that I get along with, or or people that I just find it easy to interact with, because I do spend a lot of time online, but I also have a lot of stuff going on, you know, outside of that.
Yeah.
So if someone's talking to me and I'm finding it really, it's a challenge, if it's a challenge for me to engage with them and it's taking up a lot of my energy and it's not like an easy kind of fluid thing, then I'm probably not going to engage with them as much. So I think my interactions vary. Some people I'll interact with a lot and some people I'll interact with less, you know, just as you would,
of course,
with, you
in
know,
real
having
life.
friends in real life. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I generally try and be as, you know, like, I guess, inclusive and validating and friendly as I can be. You know, I try not to like leave people on scene and try not to, you know, make people feel like they've been brushed off or whatever.
Yeah.
As much as I can. Obviously, there are some times when I just like don't have the time or energy to like interact with people as fully as I'd like to. But I also really hate having the little icon that says I have a message, so I have to like open it to get rid of the.
Oh yeah, I'm
thing,
like that
you
too.
know?
It's my
really.
my closest sort of OCD like trait, I think.
Mm.
Unread
Yeah,
messages, I can't deal with them.
Yeah, exactly. So sometimes I might have to open a message to get rid of the icon, even if I don't like reply to the thing or whatever. Yeah.
Would you say that you're when people message you, is it positive? Is it negative? Neutral?
Oh, definitely like overall positive. Occasionally, it's mostly positive. I think when I first started my account and I was posting much more like graphic, kind of extreme stuff, I think that kind of attracted a certain demographic of people who were I mean, you know, you can call it whatever you want, unhinged or whatever.
I get it.
And because I mean, like, people enjoy that content for a lot of different reasons, you know, like some people like it for the shock factor, some people find it like interesting in an anatomical kind of a way, like, you know, what does a human body look like after it's just endured this amount of like blunt force trauma or whatever. And some people you know, so a lot of people that like, I used to have quite a bit of exposure to people that were really into like self-harm, which was not particularly pleasant because I think there are lots of ways to deal with those kinds of feelings, and I think that I think you should save cutting yourself and that kind of stuff for like, you know, keep that a fun, sexy thing to do, you know, if you're into like blood play or whatever.
Sure.
You know, I don't think it should be like a negative, destructive thing. So I think...
So that's something I'm also curious about. So given that you historically have, and you still to some extent post extremer things, are there things that you avoid posting even though you kind of would like to post them?
Oh yeah, definitely. There are some really weird pictures of accidents that I find really like quite hard to look at, and quite, you know, they really produce like a really horrible, anxious, kind of sickening, gut-wrenching feeling. And I don't post those because I know that they'll get taken down. But I think I would quite like to post them. A lot of like industrial accidents, that's kind of the thing that really makes me feel the most like nauseated. You know, people getting caught in conveyor belts and stuff like that. Getting pulled into machines is probably it really makes me
I can't look at that stuff. I'm so squeamish. You know, I don't know if this is something that's shared with the rest of humanity, but when I see someone who is like getting hurt or in pain, it sends this like shooting pain up my legs, and if it's severe enough, and it doesn't have to be, you know, gruesome or anything. It's like if I see someone scraping their knee, like I get this crazy shooting pain in my legs and I can't look at it, and I don't know where it's coming from, but it translates through digital media for some reason. So like I have to very consciously avoid it. So fair enough, you'll post the stuff and it will get taken down for being too graphic. Yeah. I'm curious about if there are things that you know that you can post, and when I say can, I mean like Instagram would leave it up, but you choose not to because of whatever reason. Something that you feel like there would be, you know, a backlash, or you would have to deal with consequences that you wouldn't want to have to respond to, like anything like that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. The thing that comes to mind straight away is stuff that relates to animal testing.
Mm.
I did post something quite a long time ago of a dog, like a dead dog that had been killed in a lab because they were doing tests on it or whatever.
Sure.
And that was like a massive amount of backlash, and I was quite surprised how how visceral people's reactions were, or how angry they were, and how that was kind of like directed at me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was like condoning killing dogs, which I don't. It's just like the reality of the situation is half of the medicine that we have
Yeah.
that's the cost, is that a lot of it gets tested on animals and stuff like that. And I, my like reasoning and I wouldn't say I'm at peace with it, but like I understand, like I've thought about it, and like there's no cognitive dissonance in there for me.
Yeah.
And I just really can't deal with people who haven't processed it and lash out because like they have a gut reaction, they haven't actually like thought about it or processed what's going on, and found some kind of internal resolution. And I really just can't be bothered with people being like, oh, you're promoting animal violence, and I'm like, cruelty to animals, and I'm like, well, no, I'm not. And they're like, yeah, but the tone of your account isn't an animal rights activist account, so this means that you're promoting it. And like just because sometimes I post silly, funny things, and sometimes I post interesting, gross things, doesn't mean that I can't do a post. Like it's like it's per post. It's not like I have like a running theme of like my stance for my whole account.
Yeah, but I think there will always be a balance between keeping people happy around you, and no one will like everything, because if you do that thing where you very clearly like, this is not my opinion, then all of a sudden it can seem a little bit condescending, or it can give off a sentiment other than what you're trying to, just by posting something that's shocking, that can sort of be, look at what the world is, and you can you can form your own view on this. But some people like to project, and some people, I guess it's understandable too, if they see something that is very emotionally stark or even like a little bit traumatic to look at, to not know what to do with that emotion, and so they lash out against whoever is closest associated with it from where they stand.
Whatever's put it in front of them. And I totally understand that reaction, and I don't have a problem, like I get it. I just like don't really have the time or energy to be that person that that people want to lash out at or whatever, because I really don't like people misunderstanding me. That is really I find that really upsetting when someone doesn't understand what I'm trying to convey. So I find myself feeling like I have to get into it with the person and over explain everything, and it's really important for me to have them understand, and I don't always have the time or energy to get into it with people, so sometimes it's easier just to not bother.
What's that joke? I can't believe hunters going out into the forest and killing animals. Wouldn't it be better if they just went to the grocery store and buy their meat from there, where no animals have been hurt? It's like,
exactly. I mean that pretty much sums it up.
No, I see that too. Interesting. And like we talked about last time, I have my list of questions. I know that your account posts a little bit, the content in your timeline, the posts, differs a little from your stories. Can you tell us about the distinction and why that is?
I guess the posts are, they're more curated. I've kind of thought about them a little bit, or I just happened to flick through my camera roll and I realized that I haven't posted these 5 images and that they actually work together really well, or whatever, and I want them to be like a permanent fixture in the collage of stuff that I've posted. They contribute to a bigger collection of pictures, whereas the stuff in my story, I guess, is It's a lot more, stuff that just appeals to me in the moment, and I can just like post it because I think it's funny in the moment, and then it'll be gone in 24 hours or however long, and I don't have to think about it again, and it doesn't go down on my permanent record.
I'm sure it does somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But I mean, it's more like it's just non-permanent, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough.
And I enjoy that aspect as well. Like that's. Yeah.
So for me, I see quite a big difference. I do a little bit of it myself, but I see it more in your account, where if I go to your timeline, it looks almost like a medical textbook, or some sort of art installation, which is very curated. Whereas in your stories, you're really personal and personable, and you show your face a lot, and you speak your mind, and you talk about different things. It's there's a bit of a distinction between the two. And what's the reception like? Do you feel like is the response on your posts versus your stories similar? Is it different? Like, what are the comments and the messages like?
Well, I mean, just to go back a wee bit, I think that like they're both very different functions, and I think you should use them differently. Like you share other people's stuff on your story because the mechanism is there for you to do that. There's the share button or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think it's a good way to like express a bit more of your personality, promote other people's work and stuff that you like, I mean, I think that it's quite a good function, as opposed to you're more, as I said, you're more like permanent collection of things. I also think it's a good tool for starting conversations about things that you find interesting. It's a good resource for getting things that you need, connecting people. If you need someone to help you with something, you can say, hey, does anybody know how to do this?
Yeah.
Slightly
more immediate, I guess. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, I think I get a lot more interaction from my stories, and I think obviously I post a lot more stuff that like pertains to my like moral or political beliefs or whatever on my story, and so I end up with a lot more interactions based on that. And I think my story, the things I post on my story, are a lot more like open for discussion, whereas the things I post, it's a lot more curated, and it's just like, here it is. You can like it or not like it. It doesn't matter. Like, you just look at it,
Yeah. Well put. So you mentioned you had a couple of people from your real life that followed you in the beginning. Do they still follow you, or what's the role of Instagram in your real life and vice versa?
Well, I mean, I actually use the app, as basically probably one of my main sources of communicating with people. People that are actually in my life. I get on really well with the guys at my work, the mechanics workshop I work in. Like, we get on really well. So we have a group chat where we send each other stuff on Instagram, and I use it to communicate with my partner a lot. Almost as we don't like message each other or text each other very often for some reason. We seem to use Instagram. And as for the people that follow me, to start out with, I think most of them still follow me. Quite a lot of them are people that are like overlapping friend groups who I don't actually spend any time with, but I know that like we do get on real life, but I just don't get out much. And they're in their friend group and I'm doing my own thing. So they're kind of like acquaintances, and if I do run into them, it's always like good to see them in real life. But I don't think I've had many people be kind of know me in real life and then see my online presence and kind of be weirded out.
So mostly positive?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. If you if you go back to when you first started your account, knowing what you know now, Do you think you would start it again? Is there anything you would have done differently?
I don't think so, but there is definitely like a weird honeymoon period. I think we talked about this a wee bit last time. You know, when your account first starts like gaining a bit of recognition or whatever, and it is like a real, you know, it's quite a surreal experience. And you know, I was constantly waiting for it just to stop. You know, like wait for, you know, people would just stop following me, or you know, I kind of couldn't believe that it was happening, basically, because I didn't, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't set out to have, you know, any kind of notoriety or anything like that. So I was kind of just like, holy shit, I can't believe this is, you know, can't believe this is happening. So I think that if I did start my account again, it'd be pretty much exactly the same, except obviously I'm a little bit more desensitized and a little bit more probably, I guess desensitized is probably the right word, you know, to the whole having people following me thing. So it probably just wouldn't be as exciting. I think that like discovering the community and then discovering that people like what I post, that gives you like a weird little push into continuing.
Yeah, I get it. Tell me something you're looking forward to in terms of Instagram, like a milestone or some achievement or something you're hoping to do with your account.
Whenever I see someone, look, I really like a good T-shirt. If I'm following someone if I'm following someone and they've made like a cool T-shirt, I just really like cool T-shirts, and there's a really good meme that everyone shares, and it's like the timeline of like a good Instagram account and how it starts off with like, you know, 500 to 2,000 followers, and it's like good, and then it's like the middle bit, and then like the end of it is like it sucks, it's not funny, and the person's made like a fucking lame T-shirt that they're trying to sell. So I definitely want to like fulfill that story arc and make some stuff to sell people.
Sure.
Not so much to make money out of it, because you know, I already have my jewelry business that I have, and that, you know, definitely helps financially, but more just because you know, whenever I find someone selling a good T-shirt, I'm like stoked, and I'm like, you know, fuck yeah, another T-shirt to add to the collection. And I'm sure other people feel like that, so I'd like to.
I bought a couple of T-shirts on Instagram. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I also, when I was not quite young, probably when I was 15 or 16, there was a weird exhibition at the museum, and it was about like T-shirts and how they first became a thing. You know, they started off as like, I think they started off in the military as, you know, like physical, like PE garments, basically, and how they've kind of evolved. And, you know, I found that really interesting, and there was obviously it was a lot more involved than that, but ever since then, I just fucking love T-shirts. So, yeah.
I think
I'd like to make some stuff.
There are a lot of good accounts. So there's like Good Shirts, obviously, where they post T-shirts. Yeah. There's Validation Slut. I don't know if you've seen her. She posts a lot of T-shirts too. And
no, I haven't. Oh, that sounds like a great username.
There are it's a good account, and Herman Wakefield, I think is his name. The guy.
Oh yeah, you know, that's a great account.
Northwest MCM.
The chair dude.
I'm pretty sure he did the meme with the T-shirts that were coming out. You should look into it for sure. I mean, you have obviously like the following to make it worthwhile, I think. Yeah, I would assume so.
And I've got one of my online friends. They're a designer or a graphic design artist, and when they get round to it eventually, you know, when they're free, they've started like working on a wee design thing for me. So, you know,
am I hearing a dog too? Like there's like a whole little zoo where you are.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Nice, good for you.
Yeah, she's just gone outside, but I'll show you when she comes back in.
What's fame like for you? What is fame to you?
Honestly, when anyone says like fame, I think of people that like I don't know, there's this thing about, like if you're rich and famous, you can pretty much go to any restaurant and the person will just like let you eat there for free,
Mm-hmm.
you know? Whereas like if you're like broke and hungry, like obviously no one's going to give you anything.
Yeah.
And that like infuriates me so much. So yeah, that's literally the first thing that comes into my head when I think of like fame, and it really pisses me off.
Do you get free stuff for being an Instagram celebrity?
I have done in the past. I had
Nice.
like people that would send me money and all sorts of
Oh,
weird
yeah.
stuff, which was pretty exciting. And that did happen in that golden window of like 500 to 2,000 followers.
Yeah.
So that was pretty crazy. Doesn't happen much anymore, but I mean, not that I'm not that bothered about it. It's just like it's more of the gesture
Yeah.
that someone's like, here, have some money, and I'm like, wow,
Yeah, it's crazy.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like my life is, I mean, I do pretty much everything that I want, I'm living the dream,
Mm-hmm.
as some people would say.
Mm.
If I think back a couple of years and think about what I wanted in my life back then when I didn't have it, I'm definitely doing all that stuff now. But, it's all like fairly ordinary stuff, I've found a couple of different ways to make money that don't make me feel horribly depressed and are flexible enough so that I feel like I have some autonomy and freedom.
Mm.
And yeah, I have like hobbies and activities that I like doing. Yeah, so I don't know. I feel like I live quite like an ordinary but very satisfactory life. Yeah, I don't feel like I'm anything special at all. Like I definitely feel like a bit of a fraud sometimes, or I like a bit, just like imposter syndrome.
Do you consider
stuff.
yourself to be famous?
God, I don't know. I mean, sometimes depends on the day,
Yeah. 30,000 people.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah, true. And like sometimes, it depends how people react to you, I guess.
Yeah. But also,
Yeah.
being in this little bubble, it sometimes it's hard to understand the significance of a follower or a like or a share. Like, what does it mean? What does it do for you? So any sort of metric around it, I think, is almost like a vanity metric. It doesn't necessarily mean anything, but
Yeah.
somewhere in the mix, you start having like real connections and a real network and a history and I guess like a personal brand, for using a silly term. So there is something more to it than just the follower count, but it's hard to. You don't
Yeah.
know when that will change. You mentioned that a lot of things happen for you between 500 to a couple of thousand, right? Like, but it's not a linear growth. Like it sort of
No.
fluctuates and it's chaotic and all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that I don't know. Like, there's obviously the concept of currency, right? And like you
Mhm.
get paid money,
Yeah.
but that's just compensation for your time,
Hmm.
and then there's like the distinction between your time and your attention. Like I could be having a really distracted, useless day at work, and I'd be at work and I'd be working, but my attention, I'm not paying much attention to what I'm doing.
They call it.
So I feel like
they call it presenteeism, right? Like absenteeism
Yeah.
and presenteeism.
yeah. So I feel like your attention is actually like your main currency.
Yeah.
And I feel like if people are giving me their attention, or giving the things that I present online their attention,
Hmm.
I don't know. I feel like that counts for something.
Yeah,
And
I agree. But also it's
Yeah.
a slightly parasocial relationship, because
oh yeah,
are they engaging
Yeah.
with you? Are they engaging with the content? Like
well, they're engaging with the thing that I give them to engage with, right? Like that's
totally. But I also
Yeah.
feel like if they do that in order to facilitate like a connection to an old friend, they see something you post, they send it to someone else to start a conversation with that person. Like, where does that leave you in that? Does that mean that you're part of enabling other people's like social networks, or are you an entertainer, or are you part of the infrastructure for like it's really hard to put a
Yeah.
specific And it's not a constant either. Like it changes with every interaction for every person, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I've always, I guess, I don't know, for me it draws some similarity to how I feel about music and making music, which is basically like my desire to make music stems from the feelings that I get. Like when I hear a song that really moves me or makes me feel something, you know, my desire to make music is wanting to make something that makes somebody else feel the way, you know, that same way.
Yeah, yeah.
And I feel like it's kind of akin to that in a way. Yeah, I don't know. I'm having a hard time.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
So then I have a follow-up question for you. Could you recommend 3 accounts that give you a good feeling? 3 accounts you really like on Instagram.
Yes, I can. I think the first account that comes to mind is Flesh Effect. And that is because she seems to post, I mean, she doesn't post like prolifically, but, well, you know, like not a huge amount of stuff, but the stuff she does post really brings together my love for, I guess, like hands-on forms of making stuff. Like, she does like neon. She has done some like work with neon, you know, making neon.
Cool.
Which means, you know, you have to create like the glass tube, and then you have to put like the gas in it, and then put the current through the gas to make the neon or whatever. And that just like, you know, it brings together some really, really cool, you know, 3 different really cool things. You know, there's like just, you know, the glass, the gas, and the like the electricity, like that come together to make this really weird, like abstract thing. And there's something really organic about it, like you know, the shapes of the glass and stuff, you know, it's very kind of like melty. Obviously, like you have like your normal like neon signage, which is all very like, I guess they make it out of like glass tubes that they then like shape, but you know, if you can imagine something a lot more like globular and weird flowing shapes with the gas.
Flesh Effect, that's it's not specifically like a neon
No.
account, right? Like she
No.
posts all sorts of
It's
stuff.
yeah, she does, but it all kind of, for me, it like encompasses that level of like hands-on, almost like artisan kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Where if you think of like glass blowing, I don't know, like welding, metal work, stuff like that, like more kind of hands-on things, and then combined with
maker,
you know, some. Yeah, exactly. But it's combined with a bit more like abstract-y kind of like sciencey stuff. Like we talked about it in our last talk, but she did that that like Louis Vuitton cholera thing with Ben Ditto.
Right.
Yeah. So like, you know, it just brings together all these things that I find really interesting into one kind of space. So I think that, yeah, I don't know. And then yeah, and then there's also quite a bit of like organic kind of stuff. Like I know her friend who has the account Decay College, you know, finds a lot of dead things washed up on beaches and stuff like that. So there's lots of interesting, you know, preserved animal specimens and, you know, dissecting roadkill and stuff like that. And, you know, she posts a bit of that kind of stuff as well. So it kind of just like brings together this combination of things that I really appreciate, which is like organic kind of stuff that gives you a bit more of that visceral reaction, which I really appreciate, which comes from, you know, like the dissection and preserving organs and stuff like that. I'm a mechanic, and I, you know, love metalwork and stuff as well, so I really appreciate you know, like hands-on artisan work, you know, like glass blowing, welding, all that kind of stuff. And then there's also like quite a bit of scientific you know, like I guess biochemistry and that kind of stuff, which I know very little about, but like I know that if I got into it, I'd find it really, really interesting, you know. So it's this really, I don't know, it just feels very holistic, like it hits all of the buttons for me, you know. It's like, yeah, it's really cool.
Flesh Effect, Decay College, and a third.
I mean, those were very like, those two accounts especially were like some of the first ones that I started following. So I guess, you know, there's heaps and heaps of accounts that I really, really like. Yeah. So, you know, it's really hard to narrow it down, but I guess those are like quite influential for me because when I first discovered the online community, they were like some of the first ones where I was like, holy shit, like that's so cool that people are doing this. And then I'd also say probably Supreme Jesus Lover because I don't know, she's had her original account deleted as well, but she would post some really, I don't know, more like kind of more like meme related stuff, but it was also very aesthetically pleasing. And you know, there were little like poetic aspects to a lot of the posts that she'd share, and it was kind of you know, also a bit of like a commentary of what was going on at the time, like it was like kind of political in a way, whilst still being, you could tell it was kind of more, you know, it was political whilst still feeling like an art project, and it was also like kind of taking the piss and, you know, pretty like funny and cynical of a lot of stuff, and that was, you know, I definitely relate to that as well, and we definitely had some crossovers in our like aesthetics.
Yeah, I get it. There's like a
but it was
taste, you know, like the taste is what unites us in many ways.
Yeah,
for all sorts of things.
Yeah. So that was more of like a you know, so if the first two accounts I mentioned were more like tactile, the stuff that she posted was a lot more like abstract and more kind of like internet culture related, which, you know, is another thing that I really enjoy.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're getting pretty close to the time that we set out with all the delays and stuff. But I have a couple of more questions. So one was when I first mentioned that I want to talk to, you know, a couple of the Instagram accounts that I really like. I posted it on the story something. You were the first one to reach out, and you were fairly enthusiastic about it too, which I obviously like was really excited to see because you're like an old OG favorite of mine. What made you want to be part of this?
I think we talked about it a bit last time, but I think that something that appeals to me is like, well, something that's important to me is obviously we have like this community on Instagram, which is really cool and everything. But I really like to think that it would live on in some other form if Instagram wasn't there, you know. I don't like the idea of it being, but like basically we're at the mercy of like, you know, of Facebook, and we got, you know, like Meta or whatever, and that's not a great feeling, and it feels very conditional, you know. So for me it's kind of you know, I think that the community needs to diversify and do some different things, and obviously doing a podcast or whatever is, you know, it's, you know, everyone's got a podcast these days, and, you know, I think it's just like, I think that, the community on Instagram needs to do some other things that don't involve Instagram.
I agree. And I was thinking the same thing, you know, with the podcast stuff. It was actually something that kept me from doing this for a long time, just because I feel, you know, the slight shame that is associated with trying to do a podcast. I never intended necessarily for this to be a podcast as a result. And the only way I could sort of justify it to myself was if I just talk to people that I, you know, admire and look up to and think are cool people and that make my days a little bit brighter, you know. Like I can stand behind that, even if people call it a podcast.
I think maybe we just need to like rebrand it a wee bit. Because there is like this, there's I've seen a lot of like variations of the same joke, but there is definitely something embarrassing about about having a podcast, and but the joke is, every white guy that has said something funny once thinks they need to start a podcast.
Totally.
Which it is fucking annoying, and like everybody's got a podcast, and holy fuck, like
that the tech bros have invented like hanging out just because they're excited about
they've
starting
commodified hanging out with your mates.
Fair enough,
Like we need another podcast, like we need another DJ.
Exactly. Maybe I'll start DJing.
Having said that,
yeah.
I'm sure DJing is really fun, which is why a lot of people like doing it.
Yeah.
And I love podcasts. I listen to shitloads of podcasts, and I think having a podcast would be really fun. So,
and you know what? Haters are gonna hate, and like regardless of what we do with our lives, I think feeling a little bit guilty and feeling feelings of shame surrounding it, it's just par for the course. Like that's what we need to do.
Exactly.
It's part
and
of
I'll
creating.
be the first to take the piss out of the podcast. You've got to be able to laugh at yourself.
Yeah. If there's a part 2, I guess technically a part 3 to this. I hope that you had a nice time today and that you would be open to maybe continuing the conversation. I certainly really enjoy talking to you. I think you're a really cool guy, and like I appreciate you being so generous
likewise.
with your time twice. And
no worries.
Cross your fingers. I'm crossing mine that we actually like pressed the record button on the audio this time.
Yeah.
But yeah, is there any parting words, any final thoughts you want to share before we wrap things up?
I don't know. I just thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
For another good conversation.
Yeah.
And also I just want to say, like, I was a bit, I wondered if it would feel a bit forced, considering that we'd already done this kind of before, and I was like, is it going to be like rehashing the same stuff? But it hasn't felt like that at all. So I'd say good job on with your questions and like guiding the conversation, so it feels very fresh again.
Of course.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I feel like we could go on forever, but that's why there's a part 2
easy.
and a part 3. So like we'll try to split it out a little.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Gabriel. Have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you.
Have
a great weekend. See you later.
Bye.